Please start. Okay. Good afternoon, morning for some of us here. Uh, this is welcome to the very first event of our Ignite session, and it's called Ignite Capsule. So let me give us some brief about the idea of this event. This is the first time that the IMA team, the one that you can see here, are hosting this kind of event. So it's actually because the IMA program are full of talents and amazing students, and we hope that this space, the Ignite Capsule session, will be the space for our students to come together to share our journey before coming here professionally or personally, and to get to know each other a little bit better. So today, our very first guest, right here, he is in the IMA program in the third year student. His concentration is in digital marketing, and he has tremendous years of working experience, over 10 years. Before he came here, he was the senior brand manager at the P&G and also the Clorox company. So we hope that we can get to hear his journey and how he got there and what else did he learn during the over more than 10 years working experience. So please join me to welcome my friend here, Omar Deacon. So please take the stage.
Thank you. And actually, I'm super curious of who of my friends are connected, but okay, I will focus now on the presentation. Thank you for the introduction. Actually, it's always nicer and it feels better when a friend introduces you, so thank you for that. And thank you for everybody to be connected. I'm super happy and excited about kicking off these sessions. As was said, we have great talent in our program, in our school, so we definitely have lots of lessons to share. And I can tell you that choosing 10 lessons for me was quite a hard job, because in the past 10 years, I absolutely have learned more than 10 lessons. And I'm sure that you all have also gathered a lot of long life lessons that we will all be really, really excited about hearing. Okay, so moving on, it's a very short agenda. I would like this session to be as much interactive as we can manage it. I know that by this time of the year, October, almost November, probably one of the things that we are less excited the most is to get into a Zoom room, right? But as long as we make this interactive and obviously no filter questions, please, if you have any, I'm more than happy to answer. Really, no filters with me, and all my friends know that. Like, you can talk to me straightforward, always. So, brief, I would like to share, first of all, who am I? I know some of the people that are connected, but I'm not so lucky to know everybody. So I will just briefly introduce who is Omar Deacon. 10 lessons over 10 years, the reason why we are all here, and a brief Q&A, okay? So if you have any question at some point in the presentation, you can also chime in and I'll be more than glad to answer your question. Okay, so first of all, who is Omar D? Omar D is the way I always close my emails. So I try to, I find like a very graphic way to portray this. And I would like to go briefly over this, because actually you will listen some more about me, who I am, throughout the lessons. So basically, first of all, and I think that's a very, very good start of somehow interaction. What is the, and my friends, please don't answer, what is the flag that is in the upper east side of this sphere? Where am I from? I am from that country. Anybody has a guess? Out of the 24 participants, anybody has a guess? Okay, let me see the chat. Mi Peru, Lupita, yes, el mejor de todos, the best country, as Lupita is saying. Oh, Paraguay, oh, I have friends from Paraguay, Duran, but no, I'm not from Paraguay. I really want to go to Asunción, but not from Paraguay, but close, very, very close, South America still. Yes, I am from Peru. I was born and raised in Peru. I was born and raised in 1986, actually in December 27, 1986. And I have lived my whole life there. I was born and raised there, as I said. And when I was 26, I moved to Panama. I got a job offer from P&G. I mean, I started my career as an intern in P&G when I was like 22, 23. And some years after, I moved to Panama because I was offered a position as an expatriate employee in the regional headquarters of Latin America. They are based in Panama City, Central America. Actually, this is the flag of Panama. And I lived there for a little bit over 3 years. And then after that, I moved back to Peru. I wanted to go back to my country, spend some more time with my family, my little sister that you can actually see here. And, you know, like I just decided to go back. I got a really good offer and I came back to Peru. And then I started working with Clorox until I decided to move here to the States and specifically to New York. There were many reasons that pushed me to make this move, getting out of my comfort zone. Honestly, I have been working for the past 10 years, earning a salary for the past 10 years. It was just suddenly that I became again a student, you know, and basically only spending money day in, day out in one of the most expensive cities in the world. So it was definitely kind of a move out of my comfort zone, but I am enjoying it and learning a lot. And then the LGBTQ plus flag, because I am a proud gay man. I was out of the closet. I came out of the closet not that long time ago. I would say like 6, 7 years approximately. And as I always share with my friends, this coming out process is a whole and an ongoing journey, you know. We are still living a world, and I can tell that Latin America is even more conservative, where what is out of the standards could not necessarily be always understood. So this coming out process, as I was saying, is part of an ongoing journey that I'm going through, and I'm enjoying it also because I love myself more than I loved myself 10 years ago. So we're at a definitely better point. Then the next sphere of my life is my family. I won't go into details. I'm lucky to have my mom, my dad, a younger brother, a little sister, my grandma that is 90 years old, mi abuelita, and also friends. And I can tell that I have very, very, very good friends. And I will talk further about that later. Then the next sphere in my life is my work. You know, I'm a marketeer. I like to call myself a brand builder, and I am constantly working behind a laptop, you know, because behind my laptop. But honestly, that part of my work that I enjoy the most is going out, talk to consumers, test a new different copy, go on focus groups, you know, like maybe take part of a shooting that we make. So it's definitely an exciting part of my job. But truth to be told, we will work probably in corporations. We will remain most of the times working and designing the work that we will show to our consumers behind a laptop. And also a professor because I love to teach. And actually one of the main motivations why I decided to come to NYU was to get my master at a great school as NYU is. So I was inspired by I have always been inspired by becoming at some point a professor. I would like to be a part-time professor, an adjunct professor that mixes its corporate life with teaching and sharing with the students, and you know, activate this two-way learning process. Then the next sphere is about balance. Balance, you will see a plane there and a house, and you will see more about that later. Okay, I won't go further into that. The next one is about self-care, you know, and I feel that probably by my late 20s, I realized how important that was. And when I say self-care, I don't only mean taking care of our teeth or taking care of our lungs or taking care of whatever physical thing, you know. I am talking also about mental health. It's super important. I can't encourage you more, guys, to try the way that you define the mean, you define the way that you want to approach that, but invest on yourself, invest in your spiritual health, invest in your mental health. Sometimes I cannot understand how we are used to like medical checkups that are basically on our teeth or our body in general, but we always forget about this important, very important organ that we have, that is our mind. So really, I mean, I really over these last years learned a lot how to take care of my mental health, and it's super important. New York, I already told you how, I mean, New York plays a super important role in my life. It has always been that dream city where I wanted to live, and here I am, and I hope to stay here for a long period. And then, last but not least, I love to swim, I go to the gym, and I also love Five Guys fries. Sorry, but I love them. And I know that I am not able to share Five Guys fries with my friend Sania, but we share other cool moments. And also, if you want to be more refined, I love Nikkei food, which is the blend of Japanese and Peruvian. So I really encourage you to try it. It's really good. Imagine a sushi with the flavor of a ceviche, Peruvian ceviche, amazing. Okay, so the 10 lessons, and I put this GIF like loading because it's really something that is actually loading, you know, like we are gaining lessons day in, day out. Before moving into the lessons, I would like to know if there is any questions or comments. I see something in the chat. So true, mental health matters, yes, Iran. Okay, so moving on to the 10 lessons. Common sense is not common. And I usually get into, I usually realize how not common is this, you know, and we can see the lack of common sense in every single aspect in our lives. You will probably see it in school, you will probably see it in your personal life. But I will highlight a little bit more on how I saw that in my professional experience. So look at this. In some way, they are all advertisements, right? Like different, well, these ones around here are advertisements. And I can tell that in my years working, I have had some discussions that are less about marketing and are more about common sense. Actually, can you imagine a bundle pack of a brand like Adidas with a soap or a soap bar that is target is pretty much more woman oriented? I can't, you know, but that's what I found in a store, you know, an Adidas brand with this brand. It's very popular in Latin America, or at least in Peru. It's a brand that basically my grandma uses. So doesn't make sense. I mean, and we don't need to know marketing. It's common sense, you know? Then this was actually a job that I did. I was designing a stopper. Stoppers are those POP materials that we use for the shelves in the supermarkets or even in traditional trade as well, where you basically are looking as consumer to stop at that communication, think about your brand, and drive that purchase intent that we're looking for. So basically, the first idea that the agency came with, and let's for a moment don't focus on the message. I mean, you need to know Spanish to understand it, but it's not about the language here. It's about a very basic thing when it comes to advertising in the point of sale. You know that we are doing shopping trips, and we're doing shopping trips in a very fast mood most of the time. So, you know, like we have a lot of things to do. We have to go from the area of the produce area to the detergents area, and then to other area for buying more stuff for our house. You are always in this mood, right? Why do you think I put a big cross over this one? And it has nothing to do with marketing or like, yes, the design. No. I would like to hear you. Why do you think this is crossed like this? Like this is not the right execution. Let's see. It's too tight. Too much copy. Exactly. Too much copy. And I mean, honestly, imagine yourself, and that's something that I always try to encourage my team, and I always try myself to put myself in the shoes of a consumer, to put myself in the shoes of the person And actually, not I will say like it that's not only has to do with the consumer, it's about empathy, you know, like being able to put ourselves in the shoes of the other. Nobody will read this. It doesn't make any sense, you know? It doesn't make any sense. Nobody will get anything. There is a saying that we say in Spanish that is like saying a lot is saying nothing. And that can't be more true when it comes to POP or advertising material in the point of sale. Then we came out with one more reduced, but I can, if I criticize myself, I will say that it is still wrong. Yes, we need to talk about mileage of the detergent, or we need to talk about the superiority of the detergent, but we cannot do it in a way that consumers are not simply going to be able to read it, you know? But well, I mean, but there are worse, definitely worse examples of lack of common sense. And you can see this one, you know, like I'm sure that you have seen this in maybe other classes. How can you, I mean, I am the company in charge of implementing this ad. How do you think I will put it like that? Or how will imagine that I work for Victoria's Secret. Do you think that as a brand manager of Victoria's Secret, I will expose my brand in this way, in a bus, in an advertorial, in a bus? No, obviously not. Actually, working for detergents, at some point we decided we were not portraying white t-shirt in buses because of the smog, because of the environmental dirt, those ads will become dirty. And what consumers are going to see, first of all, will be the image, you know, and they will see a dirty shirt, as we are now seeing here, a dirty underwear. So common sense, really, 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 it's common sense. I will say one of the first laws that we always need to pursue. Okay. Then always go for the hard right over the easy wrong. Obviously, this sounds pretty basic too, and I can tell you that you won't hear anything like rocket science. Everything that I would share are pretty basic things, but sometimes we just take it for granted and we really don't incorporate it in our lives. But it's always worth, and here I will step aside my work experience life, but more talking about us as persons. Yes, doing the right thing might be hard sometimes, you know. If you are not able to make it for a plan with friends on a Friday afternoon or evening, yes, you don't want to say like I cannot make it because I don't want to be, you know, like seen as I don't want to hang with you. But at the end, if I know that I won't be able to make it, and I end up saying to my friends just like 30 minutes after we were going to meet that I cannot make it, it will be worse, you know? Yes, it might be hard, but we know that what is right to do. So when it comes to work, there are pretty interesting things where I've been into. And you know, this is a package that I actually developed for the ACE brand. As you can see, ACE, and I guess that in Asia, it's also the brand ACE, is the brand that is basically tied here. Okay, in Latin America, we know it as ACE. I developed this launch of the ACE liquid detergent. The penetration of the liquid segment is very low in Latin America. People still use a lot of powder detergent. So we were like, you know, moving all our brands of the portfolio of P&G into liquids. And we started working in the artwork. And obviously, I mean, you know what is the most fun part of this, right? Basically working as if on the front label. But we also have this back label. And this back label needs to have a lot of copy. Nobody reads it. Nobody read it. Nobody. And actually, I can remember people saying me at some point, like, and this is also kind of lack of common sense, right? That they were saying, no, if you don't have enough space in the front panel for the claim, imagine, I don't know, this one, you can put it in the back. I was like, who will read the back? I mean, I bet that you don't even read this, you know? You don't even read this. If you see a heating map of how people read a packaging, you will realize that obviously this is the most read part you know, because the attention of people is here, and also the beginning of like the left upper side. But the point is, okay, we need to develop a new packaging. We need to have legal information, and we need to have regulatory information, you know, and the instructions. We need to have that. And I used to get a lot of requests for approval of the artworks. I used to, you know, like I was in my computer and I used to get a lot of requests for me to approve the artworks. Because at the end of the day, I am the ultimate responsible of what will go out there. Yes, my partners of legal, my partners from quality assurance work together and they make sure that the copy on the back label is correct. We are a team, we're a multifunctional team, but I'm the leader of this initiative and I'm the leader of the brand. So I will be the last person that will click on approve, you know? And guess what? Yes, you used to get at some point when you're about to launch a new product, a lot of requests because we will have one back label for 3 liters, one back label for 4 liters, one back label and one front label for every single SKU. Okay. The easy thing that I would have done, or the easy run, if you want to tell, is just approve, right? What is the risk about that? If I don't do like a brief review of what I'm doing, which is really hard, what will end up happening? I will put the whole brand in a risk of a potential recall. If there is a minor error, we might need to some point recall, and that can be millions of dollars, you know? And if I am the owner of a brand, as I am as a brand manager, I need to make sure that everything works well, from the design to the delivery of my innovation. So yes, I mean, you can just raise your hand and say, hey, I need some time, or hey, I need some more resources. I'm lacking of capacity for doing this, and it's perfectly fine, okay? And we will actually go over that a straight talk thing later on. So yes, it might be hard, it might be stressful, it might be boring, but always pursue the hard right. So up to now, any questions? Word. Very important because we often forget we are also consumers. Yes. Well. Okay, so moving on. Promise made, promise kept. And I would like to highlight here how important this is when we establish relationships at work. It works as many of these lessons. It works for every single aspect of our lives. I always try to keep my word, to honor my word. If we make a promise, you better comply to your word. You better make things happen, right? And when it comes to establishing work relations, I can say that that's probably one of the most important things. Trust. Trust is like the key bond to have a team working together towards the same goal. If at some point that bond is broken, most likely you will get into worse troubles later on. So I can tell that I have had really great bosses, extraordinary bosses, but also not that extraordinary bosses along my career. But if there is something common throughout all of them, is that I have always been able to trust them, and they trust me too. Why? Because if at some point they ask me something, or I have something in my work plan, or I commit to something, I will make it happen, regardless of anything. And because we're human and we can have also some unexpected situations that we face. And it may happen that, I cannot deliver this time. I have had a personal thing. I have had something with my little girl, my little daughter, or, it can happen. But raise your hand and say, hey, maybe I won't be able to deliver this time, or I will be able to deliver this in a couple more days. It's perfectly fine. That is actually, I can say that I value more a reportee or assistant brand manager that has reported to me that he was absolutely diligent on the work he does, or the way he did, sorry. But if at some point he just was not able to make something happen, he'd raise his hand and say, "Hey, Omar, can I deliver this tomorrow?" I prefer that than one ABM that comes to me that day that he needs to deliver that project and says like, "Hey, sorry, I don't think I will be able to deliver it in a couple hours." No, guys, we are professionals. We are really owners of our work. We're owners of our brand. And this links to me the next principle, which is actually one of my favorites. Couple weeks ago, one good friend of mine asked me, like, she was about to send cover letters, I think, for CPG companies, consumer product goods companies. And she asked me, like, Omar, what would you think is the best quality or aptitude that I should highlight in my resume for a CPG company? And I can think of many, honestly. I can think of not many, but maybe 3 or 4 qualities that I will highlight. But if there's one that I will totally recommend you to show up or show that you own that quality, is ownership. Ownership of your business, ownership of your brand. You are, imagine orchestra, right? Orchestra. Every single member of the orchestra is absolutely valuable and needed for the music to come out in a nice way. But there is one person that is kind of directing the orchestra. I don't know if the right word in English will be this, but maybe the orchestra director, yeah? Take yourself as the orchestra director. You are the orchestra director for the business to sound amazing, to make the best music ever, right? You are the one that takes care. I mean, every single member is important, but I can tell you my experience in marketing, most of the times I have felt like that. Like the orchestra director is not better or worse, it's just a different role, a role that requires a lot of ownership. The brands that you see at the left are some of the brands that I work for. Not everyone, but some of them. And if there is something common in every single brand, is that I have always strived to own my brands, know the different variables, the different key performance indicators, know where my ad is airing, where in what social media platforms I am right now, where out of stocks, if there are any out of stocks, how are my sales going? You know, like how are my financials going? What is the overall financial picture of my brand? That is ownership. And I would like to share a very simple experience on Ariel. Tell me, from the people that is connected, who of well, communication is open. Wow, a lot of people. Tell me if in your country Ariel is sold or is actually being sold, because here in the States we don't have Ariel, right? But in Asia we have Ariel, in Europe we have Ariel. I guess that you are kind of familiar with the brand. Yes, Sania. Okay. In India. Yeah, in Brazil too. We're just in Germany. Lara, how are you? Yeah. In Lara, in Germany, you have also Henke, which is a big competitor. No, in Thailand, Nigeria. Oh yeah, yes, I have seen some success cases of Africa that are pretty good. I always love to watch videos to search and reapply best practices, and sometimes you can see that the consumers on the other side of the world sometimes are pretty similar to our consumers. Okay, so yes, wow, you're really missing out. Okay, so I will tell you briefly about Ariel. Ariel is a brand, and okay, so first of all, this case is from Peru. Ariel is out of the brands with the highest performance perceptions Actually, it's a brand that has built this communication throughout the years that it has in the country, all about superiority communication, one wash, wow, you know, we clean better, we leave your clothes extremely clean, no stains, everything about performance. But happens to be that Peru is a country that is mostly like 90 to 95% of the people hand wash, okay? Yes, they may have a hand washer, sorry, they may have a washing machine, but they still hand wash because they still believe that your underwear or the colors of your shirts or the socks needs to be hand washed. They trust a lot in the power of their hands. It is very similar in Latin America, only in Peru and in Bolivia, and in Central America too. Different to other countries like Chile or Argentina that are already very towards washing machines. So what was happening with Ariel? Whenever we went to consumers and do focus groups, we always heard, I mean, they already knew that Ariel was great. They already knew that Ariel was like the best brand in the market. They already knew that it cleans well, but they complain about something. They say that it was harsh in their hands, right? So connecting the dot of people hand washing massively. With this, you can imagine the impact that it might be having in the business. People were restraining to use Ariel as much as they wanted because it was harsh in their hands. That's why, you know, global companies always manage like a regional division. That was the one that I actually went to work in Panama. But by then I was working in Peru. So I always kind of received like a package of communication that I did minor customizations, but basically, I mean, I received a TV copy from the region and I just air it in Peruvian language. Pretty simple from that standpoint. So by then, the communication track that the brand has in the region was about saying that Ariel cleans 3 times better than the competitors. I was an ABM by then, an assistant brand manager. And honestly, I was like, why do we need to say this if my consumers are already aware that Ariel is good, that Ariel, you know, washes away any stain? Why don't we talk about something different, about something that is, you know, like very at the point human? I mean, consumers feel that Ariel harms their hands, harms their skin. Why would we keep talking about power? Actually, when we also talk with consumers and we ask them, if you have to describe the brands in a human way, you know, that helps us understand more like deep feelings towards a brand. For example, if you ask for Downy, they will say, oh, they say she, so she's a woman, right? She's you know, a beautiful woman, very fresh, very like laid back, you know. And when we ask about Ariel, they always say, oh, he's like a, you know, like a scientific, very professional, kind of arrogant. Yes, I mean, not surprisingly, we have always been talking about superiority and we're the best. And now the region wanted us to talk that we are 3 times better. So theirs were backed up with data and backed up with some conversation with consumers. I made the pushback to my boss, and my boss made the pushback to the Ariel director then to make an experiment in Peru and to talk about the formula that now, because of this new formula, one like side effect was that it feels softer in your hands. We proved the formula with consumers to make sure that it was like that. And yes, the results were amazing. And we were allowed to develop. That was not my role. While I was sitting in Peru, I was not the one in charge of developing TV copies. I was more in charge of the execution of the plans. I was not design, I was delivery. But we got the exception to be able to shoot our own copy and develop a whole storytelling about how Ariel feels softer in your hands and how you have changed because we listen you, the consumer. And that's what I would like to share with you. You see my screen right now?
Yes.
Yes, you can see? Okay.
No, we're seeing your slide.
Okay, cool. I will change it. And let me know if you can hear also because, okay, wait. New share, screen. Can you see now? The black screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if the volume is okay, please. It's okay, the volume?
Louder, please.
Louder? Okay. Yep. Better?
No, but I think we can rely on the
Okay, we will rely on the subtitles.
subtitle.
Okay. So this is a TV copy that we were allowed to produce, and look at it. So that was completely produced in Peru. That was something that we pushed, and it was honestly at some point when you work for companies that manage the marketing divided, between the local and the regional divisions. Sometimes it's also a fight of egos, on who will deliver the communication, who will produce the communication because we believe it's better. So, I mean, we had to be backed up with data and say, guys, it doesn't make much sense to be talking about superiority when we have a purchase barrier that is about harshness and hands. And just to go briefly, we did like a whole launch plan. This is in Spanish, but I just want you to see. We did like a PR tour. We fly different cities in Peru, and I joined a celebrity actually, and I was interviewed. Wow. Okay. I mean, every pastime wasn't better. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Not the clip, but we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So yes, we are the owners of everything, and I can show you many more examples on how we need to make sure that we are always seen in our team. If we are the brand managers or we are the owners of a project, as the real owners. Okay, tell me if you can see my screen now. The presentation, can you see it?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Perfect. Okay, so your career is yours. Before starting working, I used to think that, like my career was basically determined by the bosses that I get. Wrong. Your career is yours. I am the one that needs to make sure that my workload is working properly. I am the one, and that my very first years working, I had to set, like, I was overwhelmed. And yes, I think you saw one of the hashtags of the presentation, ex-workaholic. My very first years working for P&G were really, I mean, it worked from basically 8 to maybe 8, 12 hours, or maybe more sometimes over the weekends. I used to enjoy that. I love that, because it was like my brands were like my little babies that I were passionate about them. And I didn't lose that passion over time, but I just learn to balance it more. But the point here is your career is yours. You need to sit down with your boss and define, okay, like I have all of this on my plate right now. What should I prioritize? And also, I would recommend like not going and ask, what should I prioritize? Go with a proposal. Say like, hey, I have 10 things and I can only focus myself. Imagine that you are doing an internship in January. You will be studying too. Maybe you will be doing capstone. You will have some restrictions in terms of time. You will probably need at some point to ask your manager or to recommend him, hey, I think that because of these reasons, I will focus on these 5 things out of that 7 that I have to do. It's not bad saying no. It's not bad as well asking for feedback. Ask for feedback. Some bosses, I have had some bosses that are pretty active in terms of providing feedback on this part, but not everybody's like that. I always prefer also to provide feedback on this part to the people that report to me. But some bosses are not like that. And you know what is the risk when, actually I will open this question for you. What is the risk if you are working for a couple months, you don't hear anything from your boss, nor if you're doing good or if you're doing bad? You just have a very passive boss. What do you think is the risk about that? Yes, you will probably go through your job like this, but you didn't hear anything about your boss. What will you say can be a risk with that type of interaction with your boss? Anybody? Feel discouraged and confused. Yes, actually feel discouraged, confused, and also maybe lose motivation, as Fania said. Yes, and actually the worst thing that will happen is that you get surprised at the end of your time working and you get a bad feedback, and maybe you lose like 6 months without really knowing it and working on it. So really look for feedback, ask for feedback. It's never bad to get feedback. We used to say like feedback is a gift, provide feedback to your professors. Also provide feedback to your, if you want to move it to a personal life, to your friends. If there's something that you are not in agreement, just go and say it. Straight talk is the best. Okay, Pareto Principle. Basically, I guess that most of you are familiar with this. As I said, my very first years, I feel kind of a workaholic. And at the point that I decided to work smart rather than just work harder and harder, I realized that maybe 20% of the things I do in my job were actually responsible for the early 80% of the results. So honestly, apply that in your life, apply that in school, apply that in work. And if you have a boss that pushes you to make everything, push back in a respectful way. Push back. I can tell you from the consumer product goods standpoint, you can have a lot of SKUs in the shelf. Maybe 20 or 30% of them, and this is actually based on my experience, produce that 80% of the profits. Why do we have so much? Why do we life is not as complex as we make it out, Try to play smart, try to be choiceful on the things that we want to work on. Try to realize that those things that you choose will probably be the ones that will make the most impact in your business and in your career. Always be you and let others be you. And I'm moving here to more like personal things that I feel are very important when it comes to work also. It's pretty straightforward. It's like, be you. I couldn't feel more happy at my last jobs when I was just as I was, like respectfully, yes. But I said my points. I had a proper style. I want never try to look or speak or do things as my boss does. No, I am Omar, and actually these are people from my team. This was my team at Clorox. Actually, this was my very first days in Clorox, where I used to go with a suit. I mean, then I started going in Converse, and that was absolutely fine. And here, she is Mechas. Mechas is she is a brand manager at Clorox. She was the last brand manager that reported to me. She's from Barranquilla, the city of Shakira, Colombia. Natalia may relate to that. And Mechas was a working mom. She was pretty extroverted. I love that. And we always manage these kind of straight talks, always, you know. And at some point, she had struggles raising her little daughter, Macarena. Macarena is a pretty girl that really, really cute. And you will see, I mean, at some point, for example, I remember we had a presentation to deliver to the general manager. She was the one in charge of delivering the presentation. You know how tight the schedules of a general manager are, right? And we were in the point where we say, okay, you need to make this presentation, but the show of Macarena from her pre-K is occurring at the same time. For me, there was no discussion. I mean, forget about the GM, forget about Clorox. Your daughter comes first. Macarena comes first. It's a show for, I think it was for Mom's Day or whatever. Macarena comes first. Forget about the boss. Forget about the GM. Forget about me. You know, you have to be clear in your life that we are working for a higher purpose. We are working for our Macarenas. You know, we're working for our loved ones, and we're working for whatever purpose you have in life that goes beyond work. Work is a mean, not the end of our lives. At some point, I didn't realize that, and I learned about it. Okay, so data can oftentimes beat subjectivity. I guess that my friends right now doing the concentration in marketing analytics can totally relate to this. And this is a board meeting, okay? Imagine that this is me presenting the launch of the new Tide or the new Clorox product. Everybody in this board are not from marketing. There are different, like maybe here's the marketing director or the chief financial officer, you know, or members of the board. Everybody will have an opinion. In marketing, there is, I mean, everybody has an opinion. The finance people will say something about your advertising. The other people will say, the human director will probably mention something, because we end up being all viewers, you know, we all end up being customers. And if you want to make a point, and if you are not, unless you are the CEO that can probably say, I want to pursue this way, and if it's like, you know, like not the best CEO and wants to just do whatever he wants to do, he will probably be able to do that. But unless you are the CEO and you want to make a point, back up yourself with information. How was I able to make the point on producing a new or different TV copy for Ariel in Peru? Because I backed up myself with the right information, with the right studies, with the right focus groups, with the consumer is boss. And I listen to the consumer and bring it up to these whole people that maybe are not necessarily as close as I am. So leverage on data, leverage on data. I used to manage always like kind of a KPI scorecard with my team where we have all the variables. I'm pretty bad at remembering numbers. So it doesn't mean that you need to be excellent at numbers, but at least have this backup, you know, have this that supports you for making, or as more controversial your opinion is, probably you will need to have a stronger support. We can find friends for life just anytime, anywhere. Be open for that. This is a boomerang that I made with friends actually last week in Friday. Most of the, no, actually, every people here is people that I know from this year, you know? And there is no rule for meeting wonderful people and for making great connections. My mom used to tell me when I was little that my best friends will probably be those from elementary school or from high school. Yeah, I have a couple good friends from high school, but most of my real good friends were from life after that, work. I mean, during this summer, I spent a lot of time with a very, very, very good friend of me that joined me during different process that I was going through the summer. I end up a relationship. And you know, like that was really, really supportive. And it wasn't a friend that I knew for like 3 years or 4 years. It was a friend that I knew for 4 months by then, maybe. One more funny thing, I'm moving on a new apartment. And as an international student, I need a guarantor. I know this may sound crazy for some of you, but I went on a Tinder appointment, a Tinder date, maybe 4 months ago, with a guy that I connected perfectly. You know, like we made a great match, not a romantic match, nothing out of that. Like it was absolutely a true connections as persons. We spoke the same language and we become real good friends. And he's now the guarantor of my apartment, the one that I'm moving into. I mean, it's crazy, but yes, a Tinder match can sometimes be a friend and maybe a friend for life. Just be open for meeting new people. When I moved here to New York, I moved here with the purpose on meeting new people. Yes, I would have probably stayed around with the 2 or 3 people that I know when moving here. But no, I want to meet people. I want to connect. I want to give the opportunity to really make good connections and friendships. And actually here is Bria, you can see her. Last but not least, balance YOLO and LTG. YOLO, you all know, is you only live once, and LTG, I mean long-term goals. At least that is what has worked for me. You can hear like both extremes of this thought in a way that people that say live the present and forget about the future, the present is now. I agree with that. The present is now. But I also care about long-term goals that I want to reach. And there's when I decided to enjoy my present, make great travels with friends here in Positano, here in Andrés Carne de Res in Bogota, Colombia, but also look for and work for and save for long-term goals, like having my own apartment, like being a homeowner. This is my apartment in Lima. And, you know, anytime that I want to get some sense of pride, I remember that I was able to reach that. That's what works for me. I pretty respect, and I have friends that are all about YOLO, and you know, like that's great, enjoy life, perfect. I just try to balance it. It worked for me. And also try to find somebody that takes cool pictures from you so you can have the memories also in Instagram or in your camera roll. Okay, sorry, I finished just 1 minute before. I would like to open if there is any question, comment, complaint, whatever.
Hi. Yes, we have some questions for you, Omar. Like, thank you very much for sharing the story. I think a lot of us could feel that relatable. So let's see the questions. So we have the first questions among like top 3 skills along with the ownership. What would you say that are the top skills, top 3 that brand managers need?
Okay, so along with ownership, I would say the ability that you have to connect with people, okay? And to use a word, I would say empathy. Empathy on know where the other one, or what the other one is going through work. I'm not saying about that you need to know the life of everybody, but remember something. If you're working for a brand, you won't be able to make things by yourself. You need to build real good partnerships. And those real good partnerships are really, really built if you know how to listen to others. Then the other one will be a leverage on the mastery of your team. You know, like you will see people that may have more experience at certain category that you can learn from them. You know, in the consumer goods sector, it's pretty common that you jump from one category to another. I jumped from managing blades and razors with Gillette to manage detergents, very different consumers. And I leveraged on the people that knew a lot about detergents, and I learned a lot of them. And the third one, I would say, be really, like, I don't want to say blunt, but straightforward on what you want and what you need. Don't hide off straight talks, speak up when you need to do so. That shows a lot of leadership. I didn't want to use the word leadership because leadership is, everybody uses leadership as a skill. But I will say that in the moment that somebody sees you as one that is taking control of your career and your projects and your brands, because you are actively speaking up and raising your voice in a very respectful way, you will definitely be seen as a leader, among other things that you need to be a leader, of course. But yes, that's it. Thank you for asking.
Yes, so we have a couple more, but let me say this first because we're a little bit over one now. So please feel free if you have any other appointment. And then a quick one that if any of us would like to share the story about yourself professionally or personally, we are open for our speakers next Ignite session. So please feel free to drop us text or messages to any IMA member. And yeah, so thank you for everyone to have joined us today, but we're not finished with our Q&A yet. So let's go back to that. A couple more questions about brand manager responsibility. So what would you describe your day-to-day, like briefly about what do you do in this field? Because some of our friends here are in the brand management concentration and probably thinking about going to that route. So how would you describe your day-to-day responsibility?
Okay, so yes, if you really want to do the brand management thing in the consumer sector, and I would say that pretty much in any sector, be ready to be a little general manager. Why do I say that? Because you need to be on top of the hot topics of your brand. You need to be on top of what's going on with your brand. And in my day-to-day work, to be very honest, I could tell that it was pretty much about articulating different parts of the business. At some point, I was in close contact with the people from supply, making sure that we had enough supply for our brand or for our launch. Do we have a correct inventory built up for launching the brand in this date? Connection with the supply team. How are our sales going? Connection with the sales team. How is our innovation coming up in the next 6 months? Connection with R&D, research and development. Also some bureaucracy things. We need to get the approval of this new key visual, of this new ad, because don't be frustrated. At the beginning, you would not have that much power. Everybody start like I always say this, and I learned over my career to be a leader, yes, but at some point I also learned how to be a good soldier, in a way that sometimes you just have to understand that you are part of a big organization where other people are the decision makers. Sometimes you have all the power to use and leverage and information and your knowledge to make your point go through. But if you cannot make that happen, don't feel frustrated. I can say that most of my week I spend it, like directing this orchestra. Yes, obviously, there was some fun part also about developing new TV copies, about developing new claims for the shelves, about learning a lot of. I mean, for example, when working for detergents, I learned a lot of the chemistry from detergents because I wanted to be engaged on. Okay, why do we say that Ariel cleans better? Oh, because it has this formula. It's not going deep into that, at least not when it comes to the formula, but there are some things that are worth going deep and there are some others that are not worth. You have to choose your battles. But it's basically, I will say again, directing this orchestra and working a multifunctional work is very, very, very common.
Oh, I was on mute. Thank you. So it's like being the brand manager, you have to really literally be the owner, making all the decisions from creative side to the very admin and financial related stuff. So yeah, really the owner of everything has to know everything from the big picture to the even the small detail that could
You have said
affect the
something
big
super
picture.
important one. It's knowing your business end to end.
End to end.
Yes,
Yes, that's a
obviously,
key.
obviously that you need to know more on whatever has to do with the consumer, on whatever has to do with what you are, how you're approaching the consumer. You need to know absolutely best than ever, but you need to have that overall picture end to end. And that requires time. And that's why I said that you better leverage on the people that are around you and the people that knows more about the business.
Thank you. So I'll just do two more quick ones here, and then the rest will be sent after the session. So what it's like to work in the CPG industry for those who are interested in going into consumer packaged goods? What are some of the pros and cons that you have seen?
Pros and cons. Okay, so I can tell that a pro, maybe the pro that the pro why I am convinced that I want to keep working in the CPG industry, at least for the short or mid-term, is that you are the owner and you control your business. You are the one responsible for, that sense of ownership that it feels somehow like if it was your company, like it was your small entrepreneurship that you are just working on. It feels literally, I know that it may sound too used, but it seems like your baby. It seems like you are having my baby Gillette, my baby Ariel, my baby. Really, it's awesome. And you know what is more awesome? When the good results come and you realize that, wow, you have a really good story to tell, not only for future positions, but to your people. Like that sense of ownership comes with a lot of rewarding feelings. I would say that that's one of the most important pros. The other one will also be about the basics of marketing. In an industry like consumer goods, where like everything goes, consumer trends evolve every day, you need to be up to date, even if you're talking about the most basic product. You can actually see how consumers interact with your brand if you do a store check. I love to do a store checks. By store checks, I mean like going to the store and see how my consumers react with the brands. How do they pick the package? They look, they say. Sometimes I was maybe too intrusive, and I was like in the shelf next to a lady there, and she was looking at Ariel, and then she went to the other brand, and I was like, why did you choose the other brand? What? Because I felt kind of sad, that she was looking into both brands, and at the end she didn't choose Ariel. And that feeling of seeing your work in the field, that is obviously a result of a multifunctional work, but it's your baby again, is amazing. One of the cons, I would say that has to do with, and I would say that, like, yes, you have the ownership of everything, but also if you expect this role to be merely creative, to be merely dedicated on building new communication, building new claims. Building a brand is not only about doing a wonderful copy. If you have a wonderful copy, it doesn't matter if your supply team didn't work hard enough to have the product on the shelf. It doesn't matter. There is a saying that I learned that says the following: is the only strategy consumers see is called execution. That is the only strategy. So you may be frustrated if you're expecting to work on brand management and you're expecting to be the next one launching the new Old Spice copy or the new campaign for Ariel. Yes, that will be part of your job. But I can tell you that it won't be probably more, no, it won't be more than 50%, if optimistic, So don't be frustrated. Like, it will get a point where you will really enjoy everything as long as you also get engaged to it. Sometimes we always like kind of get far from what we don't know. But if you start engaging to it, you will find obviously what I love the most is developing new communication or new packaging. Yes, I love that the most. But I also get to love how to track my business, how to develop presentation for management, how to sell a point, how to analyze shares. That is also part of your job. It's not the most fancy part of your job to go through Excel sheets and Excel sheets and Excel sheets of different variables, but it's part of your job. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you mentioned this as well, like consumer packaged goods, comparatively to other industry, it's especially very fast and dynamic and evolving all the time. So I think briefly to say this, that consumer packaged goods, I think another term interchangeably that we use a lot is the FMCG, which is the fast
Correct.
consumer packaged good,
that is
fast
correct.
consumer goods. So that's why it's very fast and it changes all the time in its own. That's
Yes.
the nature of this industry.
And one last pro is that if anytime we're in a pandemic, that will be the sector that will probably be booming as it's happening now. So I'm just saying.
Okay, the last question. I'm going to combine these two together. So some of our friends asked about the experience going abroad. What were some kind of difficulties you faced? And also starting a new position in general, where you get like overwhelmed by the responsibility. How did you adapt yourself? And yeah, share us a little more on that.
Yes, obviously, that the moment that I moved from Lima to Panama City, so for you to understand a bit of the background, in Lima or in Latin America, we used to live with our parents basically until we get married. I was living with my mom by then, my mom and my brother, and I got the offer of moving away from home in a very particular moment. My parents were getting divorced by then. And I got the job offer, a great job offer, of an international position, my first international position in Panama. And I was like, damn, what should I do? That was the very first time that I knocked that door of a therapist. And it was the best decision ever. It was hard. It was hard to leave my family. It was hard to leave my friends. It was hard to accommodate myself to a new environment, very diverse, with people from many parts of the world, actually, because Panama is a very, very diverse country for global companies as P&G. Interacting with people with different backgrounds and starting to build again my network and my circle of friends, just as it happened here. So yes, it's not easy. I think that we need to take one step at a time. Always make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And as I said, mental health is super important. Don't let anxiety overwhelm you. I always want to have everything in control. But know that at the very beginning, it's not possible to have everything in control. Leverage on your team, leverage on your boss, and you will go through a learning curve that at some point will make you feel comfortable again in this new environment. I was glad to live only 3 hours away from Peru, which was good. And I travel and visit my family as often as I could. But yes, it's pretty hard. It was a really interesting way of getting out of my comfort zone, living by myself alone in far from my country. I mean, trying to figure out to clean the house. It's pretty much what I'm still trying to figure out here in New York. But yes, it was hard, definitely. And what was the other question? What?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And maybe last one, briefly, about like what's your next goal? So what's next for you?
Cool.
To close this.
That was the second part of the question, right? Because I think I forgot the second part of your question. That was it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, my next goal is to hopefully find a job in the States, more specifically in New York. I'm restarting to strengthen my networking here. Actually, not strengthening, building it, because it's basically starting from scratch. And stay in the CPG industry. I want to stay in the CPG industry. I would like a role that is more focused on designing communication, on designing new, like, innovation. I love that part of the CPG sector. I would like to obviously being able to coach people, have a team, or at least I love to interact with people, and I love to have people to coach. And I would, I mean, if I have to describe my ideal role, probably it will have some people that are part of my team. But yes, pretty much I have one goal: being able to get a job here in New York, if not in New York, in the States, and continue growing. You know, I made a little break in my career because I had the main goal of getting this master, being able to become a professor, make my dreams come true living here in New York. I'm taking this break, but I can't wait to go back to work also. I'm enjoying this learning experience, but I have to tell, like, after 10 years working, I want my hands in action again. I want the experience of being in contact with my consumer. Wish me luck.
Yes, I think, yes, everyone are in the same boat now. So we totally relate to that, but wish us luck. So that comes
Thank
to an
you.
end.
And thank
Yes,
you for the
thank you.
questions. Actually, they were pretty good questions. Thank you for them.
Yes, thank you so much, Omar, for sharing your story. Part of it was like very personal and very motivating as well. So we got a lot of great feedback, especially about the orchestra part, the analogy. So yeah, so I'm really happy to see everyone here. We are, and if anyone would want to share anything, we really want to hear your stories, and we're open for speakers for next round. And so I think that it's time for us to say goodbye, and let's close the session. And any question, feedback, feel free to reach out. Let's connect. And thank you everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan. Thank you for the opportunity. Good luck. Bye. Thank you.